usiniogope, there must be a better way. Nikuambie, can't just sit in silence and pray. Can't close our eyes and hope for a better day. Yeah. Everybody's biased, usiniondoke, there must be another way. Nikuambie, wanna sleep all night and dream all day. Baby's crying, mama's far away. Yeah. Leo, Leo, together we rise up. Leo, Leo, divided we fall. Why is everyone so quiet? Usiniwache, you must have something to say. Nikuambie, the devil man try and take my soul away. Higher power gonna show me the way. Leo, Leo, it's so much hotter today than yesterday. I worry about tomorrow more than yesterday. So much harder to go the other way. I worry about the sorrow this will bring one day. Leo, Leo, from the ashes we rise up. Leo, Leo, say never again. Every single one's on trial. Usinilenge, nobody gets away, not today. Can't close my eyes and make this go away. Wanna see tomorrow and still live today. Leo, Leo, I pray. Leo, 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 just pray. Leo, Leo, yeah. From the ashes we rise up. Leo, Leo, say never again. Leo, Leo, I pray. Leo, Leo, yeah. You must have something to say. Nikuambie, the devil man try and take my soul away. Higher power gonna show me the way. Leo, Leo, it's so much hotter today than yesterday. I worry about tomorrow more than yesterday. So much harder to go the other way. I worry about the sorrow this will bring one day. Leo, Leo, from the ashes we rise.
Perhaps nowhere was the horror of the recent Hamas-led attack in Israel more evident than the site of the Nova Music Festival. Hundreds were killed, dozens taken hostage. An exhibit in their honor recently arrived in Manhattan, just steps from the 9/11 memorial. Martha Teichner takes us inside.
It almost feels like trespassing, disturbing a crime scene as you make your way through the exhibit in New York. And that's the point. What you see, all the innocent, ordinary stuff, was what was actually left behind, strewn on the sand, after the October 7th Hamas attack on the Nova Music Festival, where more than 360 people died and more than 40 were taken hostage. You're allowed to touch, but nobody does.
We had this exhibit in Tel Aviv, in Israel, and they brought all of those stuff, so hopefully we can go there as like the survivors and find our stuff, you know?
Really?
So what you see here means that people couldn't find their stuff.
Meaning they're dead?
Yeah.
For 23-year-old Danielle DeVere, an inconceivable end to a joyous all-night holiday weekend celebration where kids, most of them were kids, just went to dance. On Saturday, last October 7th, at 6:29 a.m., as the sun rose, the music suddenly stopped. And the killing started. And the kidnapping. And the sexual assaults. Hamas recorded the carnage and the chaos as people ran for their lives. Many of those videos are in the exhibit.
I remember thinking to myself, just shoot me, I can't run anymore. And I remember saying to myself, no, no.
Danielle hid in a tree. As camouflage, she covered herself with the new green scarf she had just bought.
It's powerful to me.
As she tells us about what happened, her hands tell us more.
It saved my life.
I think the events of Nova are not only being forgotten, they're being ignored.
Entertainment industry entrepreneur Scooter Braun was instrumental in bringing the exhibit to New York.
Right here, all these red circles, these are the actual bullet holes. They just started shooting into them one by one and killing the people inside. This is real. This happened.
What do you want the message to be presenting this exhibit?
I definitely don't want it to be political. I don't think this is a political...
How can it not be political?
Because it's about music. Why are musicians not screaming from the top of their lungs that music should be a safe place? Just stop for a minute and ask yourself, on either side, do kids dancing deserve to die? And the answer is no. So just give it an opportunity and have empathy in your heart for all sides.
A hard ask, given that just a few miles away, pro-Palestinian protests have paralyzed at least 3 New York City college campuses, with dozens of others in turmoil nationwide. Mutual empathy, a casualty, and anti-Semitism on the rise. At the Nova exhibit, there is heavy security.
That's Oria, my beautiful daughter. That's her radiant smile. I miss that smile very, very much.
Each day since it opened a couple of weeks ago, Hani Ricardo stands in the room filled with photographs of the festival dead.
Yuval and Moshe, they were supposed to get married in February.
To tell the stories behind the smiles.
They were radiant people, they were happy people, and they were butchered and massacred and raped and mutilated by monsters.
Her anger and pain are fresh and raw.
It was a wake-up call for the Jewish people. We had to go to Gaza. We had to take care that we won't be massacred again.
But at the great cost of tens of thousands of lives.
I don't appreciate any loss of lives, but if a terrorist hide behind them, what can we do?
These lives are her concern. Hani Ricardo wrote a song for her daughter. We asked her to sing it.
I don't think I can. It's too hard. It says, how can I go on without you, the one I love the most? And I go on every day. We have to stand tall, and we have to go on living, because this is the will that these radiant people left us.
Writers of the history, stand with me, look into my eyes and see. People go away but never say goodbye. Someone stole the moon tonight, took my light. Everything is black and white. Who's the fool who told you boys don't cry? Hours and flowers. Life is no game for the cowards. Why does the time go wild? Every day I'm losing my mind, holding on in this mysterious ride, dancing in the storm. We got nothing to hide. Take me home and leave the world behind, and I promise you that never again I'm still wet from this October rain. October rain. Living in a fantasy, ecstasy, everything is meant to be. We shall pass, but love will never die. Hours and flowers. Life is no game for the cowards. Why does the time go wild? Every day I'm losing my mind, holding on in this mysterious ride, dancing in the storm. We got nothing to hide. Take me home and leave the world behind, and I promise you that never again I'm still wet from this October rain. October rain. October rain. לא צריך מילים גדולות, רק תפילות, אפילו כשקשה לראות, תמיד אתה משאיר לי אור אחד קטן.
What if I told you that the October 7th massacre of Israeli civilians by Hamas terrorists wasn't just an Israeli problem? It is something relevant for you, wherever you're sitting around the world, and will continue to be relevant until this problem is dealt with swiftly and effectively. Here's why. Hello from Israel. I'm Mati Shoshani, and like many other Israeli men and women, I'm serving in the emergency reserve forces of the IDF in the ongoing war between Hamas and Israel. I think for me and the majority of Israeli people, October 7th is always going to be remembered as one of the most painful, heart-wrenching days of our lives. Just seeing the imagery and hearing the stories of the brutality, the torture that our countrymen experienced, it broke my heart personally, and I think it did the same for many others. But it was a very sobering and eye-opening moment where we realized who we're fighting against. These aren't people looking for freedom. They're not looking for peace. They're not looking for a better deal. They're here to kill us and destroy everything we hold dear in this world. So why should these atrocious attacks matter to you? Why should you care about what's happening here? I mean, aside from the sympathy and the care for the lives lost and the torture and the abuse that people experience here, why does it matter to you? To answer that question, let's zoom out a bit and understand where we're standing. We're in Israel, smack in the middle of the Middle East. And Israel is a democracy, but that's the exception to the neighborhood we live in. The majority of our neighborhood is countries that are non-democracies. In fact, most of them are dictatorships. Outside of the current conflict between the Palestinian people and Israel, there are many other conflicts and violent acts taking place over the last decade in the Middle East. Just a handful of those examples are the huge mass expulsion of Syrian people from Syria through that ongoing civil war to Europe and many other Arab countries. But it's not just them. Many of the nations around us use extreme and brute force against their own citizens and neighboring countries. Just to name a few, you can think of Iran and the Houthis in Yemen. You can think of the Iraqis fighting internally and with other countries, and many, many other examples. Violence is no stranger to this neighborhood. One of the strongest forces fueling violence and evil in this region is Iran. It's the country that's funneling money to the Hezbollah in the northern border of Israel, to countless other small rebellions, including the Houthis in Yemen, and also to the Hamas terrorists in the Gaza Strip. They are the masterminds, they are the money, they are the ideology behind a lot of the violence and death taking place in this region. So what is the connection between Iranian ideology and the terrorist attacks of October 7th? Well, for decades, Iran, the Hezbollah, and Hamas have been publicly calling for the destruction of the Jewish people in this land, for the state of Israel, and for all Western values. And we misheard them as a collective. We thought they meant if only we gave them more money, if only we conceded to their ongoing and ever-changing demands, then they would back down and everything would be fine. But that's not what they meant, and we really need to listen to what they're saying. They're saying something very clear. Our religion, our fundamental worldview calls for us, the Iranian regime, the Hamas movement, the Hezbollah movement, to kill those who oppose our ideology. And that's what they did on October 7th. This isn't a movement of freedom. It's not freedom fighters. It's an act of religious zeal and violence against innocent civilians. They've been preaching this for decades, and we finally get to see what they really mean. What they mean is violent to an extreme degree, not just against the Jewish people, but for everyone in a liberal country, for everyone in a country with Judeo-Christian values, for everyone in a country that has liberties and civil freedoms. These people oppose what you believe in and will use extreme violence to prevent you from that life. And that's the situation we're in. So if you're sitting in Europe, or you're sitting in the US, or anywhere else where you enjoy freedom, where you enjoy the ability to speak your mind and to believe as you believe, this was an attack on you. And it doesn't end here. This worldview doesn't stop with one attack. It keeps going until someone stands up to it and puts it back where it belongs. 20-something years ago, Israel experienced a 5-year wave of extreme terrorism from the Palestinians onto Israeli cities. We had buses exploding, people being shot as they walked to their home. You couldn't sit in a cafe in Israel without the fear of blowing up into pieces. Everyone thought at the time it was only an Israeli-Palestinian conflict thing, so to speak, until it was no longer an Israeli thing. Until September 2001, until the Madrid attacks, the Paris attacks, the London attack, and countless other attacks that all demonstrated one thing, that this wasn't limited to Israel and the Palestinians. And if we've learned anything, is that if you don't deal with this violence in a swift way, you'll keep experiencing it again and again and again until we all learn the lesson. Outside of the battleground taking place in Israel, there's a media battle taking place worldwide, both on the web and in city centers. There's a lot of misinformation out there. There are a lot of lies, just plain lies out there. And you need to speak up. You need to get educated. You need to learn about what's happening here and speak up for what's true. Reach out to your loved ones, reach out to your friends, call their legislators, write a petition, make a Facebook post, an Instagram post, a TikTok post, whatever it is, but speak to those who can hear. speak loudly in support of Israel.
The Palestine conflict is one of the most enduring and complex conflicts in modern history, rooted in a combination of historical, religious, political, and territorial disputes. Here's a brief overview. Historical context. The conflict traces back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries with the rise of Jewish nationalism, Zionism, and the influx of Jewish immigrants to Palestine, which was then under Ottoman and later British control. Partition and creation of Israel. Following World War II and the Holocaust, the United Nations proposed a partition plan for Palestine in 1947, which aimed to create separate Jewish and Arab states. The Jewish leadership accepted the plan, but Arab leaders rejected it, leading to the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. Israel declared independence, leading to the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians and the establishment of the State of Israel. Occupation and Palestinian resistance. In the aftermath of the 1967 Six-Day War, Israel occupied the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip, along with the Golan Heights and Sinai Peninsula. This occupation has been a central point of contention, with Palestinians seeking independence and the end of Israeli occupation. Settlements and land disputes. Israel has continued to build settlements in the occupied territories, which are considered illegal under international law and are a major obstacle to peace negotiations. The expansion of settlements has led to the displacement of Palestinians and increased tensions. Violence and terrorism. The conflict has been marked by cycles of violence, including wars between Israel and Palestinian militant groups like Hamas and Islamic Jihad. Attacks by both sides, including suicide bombings, rocket attacks and airstrikes, have resulted in civilian casualties and deepened animosity. Failed peace efforts. Numerous attempts to resolve the conflict through negotiations, including the Oslo Accords in the 1990s and the Camp David Summit in 2000, have ultimately failed to achieve a lasting peace agreement. Core issues such as borders, refugees, Jerusalem and security remain unresolved. International involvement. The conflict has drawn significant international attention and involvement, with various countries, organisations and individuals attempting to mediate and facilitate peace talks. However, deep-rooted mistrust, competing narratives and geopolitical complexities have hindered progress towards a resolution. Overall, the Israel-Palestine conflict is deeply entrenched and multifaceted, defying easy solutions. It continues to be a source of suffering for both Israelis and Palestinians, with profound implications for regional stability and global peace efforts.
What happened on October 7 cannot be ignored. And I have been warning against this issue. You cannot give them Judea and Samaria. You cannot give them the mountains. You cannot sacrifice the Jordanian Valley. This is a defense line. And I speak from security point of view. You see, I speak now like a right-wing Jewish extremist. But this is my understanding. Look, I have 10 years of counterterrorism experience on a regular basis. We are dealing with explosions, suicide bombers. The situation was out of control. This is my background. And when I think with a security background. And we cannot afford the masses of Arabians just invading, breaking the fence, and all of a sudden, what is that? 10 Mile? And up to this point, the Palestinian Authority has sponsored terrorism. They encourage terrorism. It's time to wake up. I'm not saying that we go on a war with the Muslim people, but at least we need to educate the rest of the world that we are in danger. Some people out there, hundreds of millions of them, want us dead. And we have to defend ourselves. Hamas is not only acting on their own. They belong to the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood belongs to a religion. And that religion has a scripture. And it's about time to open the books for the rest of the world. The majority of the world are with the Jewish people. Hinduism, they understand the Islamic danger. Buddhism, Buddhists, Christians, and it's about time. We need some help from the big majority religions to stand with us, because this is existential fight. And if we don't win, it is going to be a disaster. The whole globe is going to go into chaos. Why? You will be defeated. You never cared for the Palestinian people. Instead, you hijacked their cause and their struggle. Your useless effort has always been to destroy Israel, not to build a Palestinian nation. Your fight was always driven by revenge, not justice. You risked the lives of defenseless civilians who entrusted you to govern them, not to use them as human shields. You lived in luxury while the refugees of Gaza starved. You valued your ideals more than you valued human life. You governed Gazans by fear and intimidation. You cultivated wealth as Gazans drowned in poverty and despair. Finally, you gambled with children's blood. Hence, you will certainly be defeated. There are a bunch of movements coming forward in the West, angry in the streets, protesting. Some call themselves pro-Palestine, some call themselves free Palestine. Others say end occupation. What occupation are you talking about? Do you mean end Israel and give Hamas what they want? Give Hamas weaponry, territory, soldiers, army, so they can mess more with the global security? Are you totally blind? How can't you see the things in common between the West and Israel? And how can't you see the violence and the brutality of Hamas movement? Or it's your hatred. You have nothing to do with Palestine, you're just projecting hatred and inflicting emotional pain on the Jewish people as they mourn a modern day Holocaust? Do you think this is how you help Palestine? There is no such a thing as Palestine. Palestine what? Yasser Arafat Palestine? PLO Palestine? PA Palestine? Hamas Palestine? Islamic Jihad Palestine? What Palestine are you protesting for? You have no idea what you're talking about. I am being emotional. I have the right to be emotional. Because I speak on behalf of the children. As a Palestinian child, as a child of the land, I qualify to talk about the subject. But you have no idea what you're talking about. You never been there. You did not live the pain of that land. So what are you protesting against or about? What is your problem? Let me be clear. This war will go the way we want it to go. Your opinion doesn't matter. Even if you were a majority, you don't matter. Not in this war. It's not your business. You protest against your politicians in London, in Paris, everywhere, wherever you want. That's your business. But in the Middle East, we deal with business the Middle East style.
This is my chance
the
to
Middle
be a
East
hero
style.
for the sake of the nation. But Allah had other plans for me.
Of what's happened in Israel and Gaza, a song about non-violence seems somewhat ridiculous, even laughable, but our prayers have always been for peace and for non-violence. So, but our hearts and our anger, you know where that's pointed. So sing with us. And those beautiful kids at that music festival. Early morning, October 7th, as the sun is rising in the desert sky, stars of David, they took your life but they could not take your pride. Could not take your pride. Could not take your pride. Could not take in the name of love.
Worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. A moment of reckoning within Israel. A moment of change. Some of the changes were entirely predictable. Increased fear, trauma, anger, military mobilization. But others, none of us could have foreseen. And it's not an exaggeration to say that Hamas succeeded in doing something utterly unprecedented, but not in the way you might think. So what happened? How did Hamas's attack on October 7th transform Israeli society for the better? If you're Jewish, Israeli, or just a responsible consumer of news, you might be howling with rage right now. Hamas changing Israeli society for the better by invading, murdering, torturing, raping, and kidnapping nearly 2,000 civilians? And I want to be incredibly clear. The October 7th attack, which you could also call a pogrom, a massacre, or an invasion, was absolutely unjustifiable. In a matter of hours, Hamas and Islamic Jihad terrorists murdered more than 1,400 people, over 1,000 of whom were civilians, including little children. Some were lucky and died quickly. Others suffered the kind of agony no sane person could imagine. But we don't have to imagine it. Hamas broadcast their crimes to the world. They used their victims' phones to live stream tortures that defy all laws of warfare and all mores of human decency. And when they were done, they carted off their prizes. More than 240 men, women, and children from 25 countries to be held captive in damp tunnels deep under Gaza. So close to their homes, and yet utterly unreachable. Anyone with a working moral compass has condemned this display of brutality and aggression. But the global Jewish community has seen it all. We've endured thousands of years' worth of morally unjustifiable attacks. And in the ultimate act of resistance, we've done more than just survive.
Born in 1938. This is not a good time for a Jewish child to be born, but there you are. I was 4 years old and we escaped from the ghetto. And I remember hiding. I remember the fear always of being discovered. Cry.
Through the lens of the Holocaust, your history, what would you say is happening in Gaza?
It's not good, obviously. It's not proportional. But what part of the world seems to have forgotten was that Israel did not start this war, that it was Hamas that started this war, that it was a terrible slaughter of killing, and there was torture, little children were killed, and kidnapping. And I think when I was sitting and hiding and lived in fear, I think of the hostages who sit I don't know where. I'm ready to stop the war now and bring all of them home. I'm afraid of any deal of a partial return because I'm afraid that whoever is left behind may not survive. They started the war, and I'm sure that their leaders knew that we would fight back very strong. War is war, and they should have foreseen that before they attacked us. I don't feel guilty about what's happening.
Right now in the United States, we're seeing many pro-Palestinian protests across universities.
Ignorance. They don't know what they're talking about. And they pretend that the 7th of October didn't happen. It happened all right. I'm thinking that there's a very strong propaganda machine and that many people are just ignorant and they go along. It sounds like fun. It's like demonstrating against the Vietnam War or something. When they chant from the river to the sea, Palestine will be freed, they don't realize that from the river to the sea is where Israel is. There are 22 Muslim nations. They couldn't absorb the Palestinian refugees in all these years. Where did the Jewish refugees go? Like me, we were refugees from Poland. Relatives of ours sponsored us. We were taken in by Canada. My parents worked very hard. We didn't ask for any help.
October 7th happened. Do you still feel safe and secure now?
October the 7th was a big shock. My confidence has been shaken.
How can you bring the confidence back? How can others, Prime Minister Netanyahu? You rolled your eyes.
I don't approve of him at all. I don't approve of him. I don't approve of his government. My country is in deep shit. I'm in favor of 2 states for 2 people. But nobody asks me. If I had my druthers, as they say, there'd be a demilitarized Palestinian state next to the Israeli state, and peace, of course.
The heavy word, genocide, has been brought up. Is what Prime Minister Netanyahu doing in Gaza?
I don't think so.
Genocide.
I don't think so. Genocide is what we experienced in World War II, where they just killed Jews for the sake of killing Jews. I don't think that we are killing Palestinians because they are Palestinians. I think we are killing combatants, Hamas members, people who killed us or planning to kill us. Maybe I am deluding myself, but this is what I believe.
To Holocaust deniers that are unfortunately out there, what do you say to them?
I don't say anything to them. I say that they're crazy. I'm afraid that after all the survivors are gone, I don't know what will be left, only the books.
And your biggest hope?
That the hostages should all come back. Not 33 or 22, but all of them. I would empty out our prisons of Palestinian prisoners, give them all back.
And as visual and moving as the flags are here at ground level, well, you already said it, it's even more dramatic and inspirational from the air. A bird's eye view from Skyfox, a new installation in Beverly Gardens Park. 1,400 flags. Each flag represents a person killed in the October 7th attack on Israel by Hamas. 1,200 Israelis, 200 people from other countries.
30 different nations, flags that represent that other people around the world were also massacred, not only Israelis. So we want people to understand it, that terrorism is not local, terrorism is global.
It's been almost 4 months since the brutal attack. Beverly Hills City Councilwoman Sharona Nazarian says people haven't really had a chance to mourn. The city became the site of pro-Palestine demonstrations and anti-Semitic hate crimes rose. Installation here meant more than just putting up flags.
We want to ensure that whoever comes, whether it's our residents or our visitors, that they are in a safe environment. And so we do have 24-hour surveillance and the space is being monitored.
Dovie Francis envisioned the flag concept and despite the birth of his 3rd child could not miss the official ribbon cutting.
Her name is Sunny, her middle name is Miriam, and she's named after my grandma. My grandma is a 95-year-old Holocaust survivor who's been to Auschwitz and Birkenau and spent time with Joseph Mengele, the notorious Joseph Mengele.
The city wants this to be a place for reflection and education. The Consul General of Israel is hoping for more.
First of all, it means that diplomatically, Hamas needs to be on the terror list of every other nation in the world, which didn't happen on many of them still today.
Some girl, where you go? And she's screaming, they're terrorists, right there. The car before me stops, the man try to run from the car, and they shoot him. Many people died there. Many people.
She became known as the Lady in Red and was one of the most hauntingly iconic images from the October 7 massacre in Israel. For weeks, the world has wondered if she survived the attack on the Supernova Festival, where Hamas gunmen killed 340 people and took 40 hostage. Now Mail Online has found her, and for the first time, Vlada Patapov, a 25-year-old Ukrainian-born mother of 1 who lives near Ashdod in southern Israel, tells the harrowing story of how she survived.
at night, we're going to the party. Usually that party starts from the night to the other evening. And we came there at 3, at 6, and at 6:30, it was very, very cold. So I told Mai, let's go and lay on a blanket, and something doesn't feel right. And I heard from many people that something in the day really don't feel right. I am usually going dancing, and there I don't feel like this. I want to go and lay. And then we have in Israel some application apps that shows you when rockets go. So we have the So I have it all time in 7:29. I have the first siren in the phone. So we're going to the car, starting to look where our car is, because so many people trying to go out, and it was like starting to be some little chaos. And after 20 minutes, I think, from everything that starts, I found the car. I going to the car and I heard 3 or 4 shots. It would be the first time, I think, that they threw so many rockets. Like it was something unusual. The party was in an open field, okay? And to go out from the party, there is only one way, one road. We're driving something like 6 minutes, and I see that car stopping, like everyone stops. And I opened the window and I asked some girl, where you go? And she's screaming, they're terrorists, right there. The car before me stops, the man try to run from the car, and they shoot him. I see a big savannah, white savannah, a car, and they were in half a uniform of our soldiers. There is nowhere to drive because everyone just stopped their cars. We don't have where to go. Like the road is blocked, and they start to scream that there are terrorists from the other side too. So we blocked. All this, still rockets. It was without stopping. And then I remember there was a safe place. We have it a lot in Israel because of the bombing.
You okay?
Yeah. Many people died there. Many people.
In the shelter?
Yeah, in the shelter. In that area, they have mini shelters, open, without a door, only betonado. Yeah. And so we being there next to the policeman, and then was a moment that the policeman looked at all of us and just scream, if you wanna be safe, you just need to run to the field. It's above the street. We looked one in each other. I want to stay there, and thank God that I didn't. And we go back to the car, and then we see 200, 300, like they were 50, 60 from any side.
Terrorists.
Yeah. And then they start to just driving and running, and in motorcycles, in savanot, in tenders, white tenders, just going to in the field and shoot everyone. Like, I don't know even how to explain it, like a chicken. Yeah. They just driving and shoot everyone from the car from the other side, and my from behind. And I just sit like this under the tree, the first tree that I have next to me. And then some boy tells me, hey, you wanna come here? You wanna? Of course, of course. And he opened the door, and you can hear one of the boys behind screaming, "No, no, no! Don't stop her! Don't stop her! Just drive!" And he stopped me, and then Mai saw me. My running, I remember my running on her life, like she understand if I'm going in that car, she don't survive, like, and she's running to me, and she's always falling down, and she just jumped to the car, like you see in the video. She just jumped, and they closed the door, and when they closed the door, then we hear Matan screaming like, "Vlada, I'm here. Let me go to the car." And they just unlocked the door again. Yeah. And I remember Matan's face, like, at start he like say me goodbye. You understand that's it. We were in a car, 8 people, in a mini Kaya Picanto. They take everyone they can, and
so sorry,
in that moment I just in the field. Yeah, Matan saw us. Matan saw us going to the car, and 2 meters from us, he started running to us, and he just like screaming, "Vlada, Vlada, don't!" And I can't, because Mai jumped on me, and they shut the doors. I was like this in the car, and I can't open even the door, and I don't know who from us is going to survive and come back to our daughter. Yeah, and then Matan telling me that no one is wanna take him. After I think 10 minutes, some nice lady, I don't know till now who she is, take Matan, and thank God Matan going to another army bus, and me to another one. Someone start to shoot us from the front. 2 minutes, I think they have a puncture in a wheel. And after 2 minutes, the driver told us, "It's okay, look down." And we saw a terrorist in a white savannah dead. Who killed him? The other terrorist. Why? They even don't looking where they shooting. They just driving, screaming Allah Akbar, and shooting everywhere. The terrorist was in front of us. Then we take a right. When the terrorist, where it was, right, they start shooting from right. So we take left. And I remember this was the longest 20 minutes ever, the way to the bus. Only there I understand what's happening. And then we opened the phone, and we started to see what is really going on. So happy that I came back to my daughter, that really nothing else don't matter.
What's your daughter's name?
Romy.
Romy. And how old is Romy?
2.5 years. Almost 2.5 months.
When you saw Romy, you must have just given her a massive huge hug.
I think before in a base, when I called my father, and I have a Ukrainian father, and I tell him, "Dad, everyone dead. Everyone is dead." And the next time was when I go back to Romy, and I just fall down, like
emotional.
Yeah. And not someone that it gives me some hope. I think.
But you can see the fear in your face, can't you?
The fear, that understandable. Look, I don't understand. Like, I just understand that I need to run on my life. Like, that's it. I can't see nothing. I can't look back because they're running and shoot. Like.
And so you have to live for Romy.
Yeah.
you had to live for Romans. Yeah.
I saw people from the party after this in some meetings and everything. They broken. Maybe that's the person that I am. Like, I don't wanna fall down. I don't wanna let them win.
In a military cemetery on a hillside in Jerusalem, they are burying their dead in a way Israel has not done for 50 years. Not since a national war of survival half a century ago has this country dug so many graves for so many soldiers in so short a time. And today the shock of it all gave way to unremitting grief. It was one funeral after another here, almost one every hour. The one we witnessed was of 21-year-old Afia Tester, whose tank unit was attacked on the Gaza border. With fighter jets threatening to drown out the eulogy, it's clear the sense of security they have cultivated here has been shattered in 48 hours. But it is, say those mourning their friends, a moment that will bring unity to a divided Israeli nation.
I believe that everyone here, those who, in the right side of the map and the left side, everyone wants the best for the country. It's tough. We disagree about a lot of stuff, but in the end, we all want the best for the country, the best for the citizen.
It's been quite a divisive year for Israel. Do you think this will bring a sense of unity? Is that something that will come from this?
I would say that always in times of complete crisis, there is unity. We'll see what happens afterward.
Families destroyed by loss. It is what war does. And the overwhelming sadness is that on both sides of this seemingly unbridgeable divide, there is much, much more to come.
Who knows pain and all its parts? Who restores all broken hearts? Forms darkness and light, creator of peace and strife. Who sits on the judgment throne, clothed in mercy that alone, who sees all and knows, yet forgives and lets go. Just who will heal my broken heart when I fall apart? One that I longed for, like an ocean with no shore. Will you tell my soul who will make me whole, and promise that my heart won't break anymore? Mi haya hove veye, mi mito mechaye, poteach yadayim, matzmiach knafayim, umi yerape libi el miyami מתגעגע כמו ים שאין לו חוף. רק תגיד לי מי יחבק אותי להבטיח שאני לא אכנע בסוף, שאני לא אכנע בסוף. Just who will heal my broken heart when I fall apart? One that I long for, like an ocean with no shore. Will you tell my soul who will make me whole and promise that my heart won't break anymore? My heart won't break anymore.
What if the Israel and Hamas war could have been stopped before it ever even started? Israeli soldiers at a base right next to Gaza say they saw the warning signs ahead of time. In tonight's Prime Focus, our Inez de la Cuatara has the story of the unit tasked with monitoring everything. The members say they weren't listened to and believe if they had been, everything could have been different.
But for this Israeli observation unit, life on base was also challenging. Stationed at the Nahal Oz base, less than half a mile from Gaza, they were known as the eyes of the military, constantly monitoring hundreds of surveillance cameras overlooking the border. Always watching, always on high alert.
הרגישו שמשהו חריג עומד לקרות.
On October 6th, the young women shared dinner to mark the holiday of Simchat Torah, one of the most joyous festivals in Judaism. Just a few hours later, hundreds of Hamas militants breached the border. Nahal Oz is first in the line of fire. But were warnings from these observation soldiers ignored? This is the untold story of Unit 414.
כל מה שראינו תמיד התרענו, גם אנחנו מחויבות לעשות את זה. כל דבר חריג שאת רואה, את מעבירה את זה במחשב וזה עובר הלאה. לאן הלאה אין לי מושג, כביכול למודיעין, אבל אני לא מקבלת על זה תשובה בחזרה מה עשו עם זה.
Ronnie Lifshitz was part of Unit 414, but happened to be away at a training on October 7th. She says she risks serious consequences in speaking with us.
כנראה יכולה להיות תגובה מצה"ל, נגיד לך את האמת, זה מעניין אותי לא. הם הפקירו את חברות שלי, אין לי סיבה להקשיב להם, אז אם הם היו פה, הם היו בטוח מדברות.
Her unit knew its task was of the utmost importance to monitor the cameras overlooking the Gaza border at all times and report any unusual activity. She tells us it is almost always women who are assigned surveillance positions.
זה תפקיד שאת צריכה המון קשב. לבנים אין את זה, בנים לא יכולים לשבת 4 שעות ולהתרכז במשהו
Ronnie says what they saw was a flurry of alarming activity. In the months leading up to October 7th, the young observers were reporting events nearly every day.
סיור קו זה, יש לך, אומרים לך 10 טנדרים, שזה 300 מטר מהגדר על ציר. עוברים לך 10 טנדרים, שזה חריג. עוצרים לך בכל עמדה של החמאס. זה 1, 2... זה האימונים שהיינו רואים לעומק, מתאמנים, כאילו, כנראה מחבלים, מתאמנים, את רואה, כמו ממש פעילות של צבא, מתגלגלים, לומדים איך לראות.
Every Friday, it was like in the routine.
Ronnie's account lines up with what Ori Asaf says he heard from his girlfriend, Sergeant Osher Barzilay, a communications officer who was killed inside the Nahal Oz command center. He shows us text messages Osher sent him just 2 weeks before October 7th. Osher writing, "All the violent disturbances and incendiary balloons are in our sector. Ori, everything is here. 3 violent disturbances, people armed with weapons and explosives. The fence is destroyed. He says Asher couldn't tell him everything, since much of the information was classified, but she repeatedly told him she saw Hamas burying explosives near the border. The warning signs were there, says Ronnie, but those at the top didn't take them seriously.
כן, התעלמו מאיתנו, לגמרי זלזלו בנו. אף אחד לא באמת התייחס למה שאמרנו, לדעתי בעיקר בגלל שאין לי דרגות על הכתפיים. בגלל שאני סתם חיילת פשוטה בת 20 ולא עשיתי כלום ושום דבר.
The responsibility of a government is to protect the people, and clearly that responsibility wasn't met. And we'll have a lot of questions, a lot of investigations, but I have now one responsibility. And the responsibility is to defeat Hamas.
According to the New York Times, Israeli intelligence obtained a Hamas document laying out the blueprint for a major attack more than a year before October 7th. The Times says the report was dismissed as aspirational by Israeli officials. In a chilling phone conversation obtained exclusively by ABC News, Ronnie can be heard telling her mother in September that she's overwhelmed by what she's seeing.
תקשיב, 3 ימים ברצף, פרשים טורקיים. היום היה הפסד בקרני, היה פיצוץ מיטה.
Observation soldiers are told their cameras are their weapons, so they are always unarmed, even when stationed so close to Gaza.
You never had a gun on you when you were at the base?
No, never.
Did you feel unsafe?
Yes. לא הכינו יותר מדי, בחיים לא אמרו לי לאן ללכת שיש חדירת מחבלים לבסיס.
Eyal says it's not just that the girls' warnings were ignored, they were also abandoned, left to fend for themselves on October 7th for 6 hours. When they called for help that day, he says this was the answer.
Good luck, Nachalos. Take care. We don't have enough soldiers to come here and rescue. So, take care. Take care.
The commanders in the intelligence corps of the IDF didn't listen to those brave female supporters. This is something which is unbelievable.
Noam Tiban is an IDF Major General who went to rescue his own family on October 7th.
This is why Nahal Oz is a symbol of the failure, is a symbol of what happened to us on October 7th. Everybody that is in charge of this failure need to go away.
In response to our detailed list of questions about Nahal Oz, the IDF sent us a short statement saying the IDF is currently focused on eliminating the threat from the terrorist organization Hamas. Questions of this kind will be looked into at a later stage. In March, the IDF announced it was launching an internal probe into its missteps. Results are expected to be released by the end of August.
We're still waiting. Nobody from the army made the investigation. In October 7, like Noam, Aviv, Adi, Osher, my Ronnie.
With no end in sight to the war, Ronnie's best friend can't help but reflect on all the lives that she believes could have been saved if only someone had listened.
אם באמת מישהו היה נותן פקודה של להביא יותר לוחמים, לשים אותם על הגדרות, יכול להיות שלא היו כל כך הרבה נרצחים ונופלים, וחברות שלי היו ניצלות.
I think all the people in Israel, we are not the same. We are not happy like we used to be happy. You feel like you're living this day over and over because they're still hostages.
New video this morning, 4 hostages reunited with their families after being rescued. They were kidnapped in the Hamas-led attack on October 7th. According to Israeli officials, their ages range from 21 to 40 years old. Israeli forces say they're prepared for this operation for weeks.
Israeli forces have been preparing for this rescue mission for weeks. They underwent intensive training. They risked their lives to save the lives of our hostages.
This morning, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited the hostages in the hospital. Israel's operation today is the largest recovery of hostages alive since the war began. 7 have been rescued so far. Also new this morning, hospital officials say at least 94 Palestinians died during fighting in that same area where these hostages were rescued.
Here, though, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is remaining defiant amid mounting pressure to reach a ceasefire and hostage release deal with Hamas. He's vowing to maintain his major sticking point for a deal, including the condition that Israel will keep control of the border between Gaza and Egypt. Thousands of Israelis took to the streets to protest the strike yesterday, demanding a deal. The recovery of 6 dead hostages in Gaza sparked the demonstrations. Among the victims was an Israeli-American man, Hirsch Goldberg, Poland.
Powerful interview to share with you now. I first spoke with Gali Edan when I was in Israel last November. Her 18-year-old daughter, Mayan, was murdered by Hamas on October 7th in front of her family. Hamas then held the Edans at gunpoint on the floor of their kitchen for hours, live streaming the whole thing on Facebook. The ordeal ended with Hamas kidnapping Gali's husband, Tzachi. Gali and I spoke again in northern Israel this week. We talked at length about the pain she's endured, her plea for officials to reach a hostage deal, and her hope that she will see her husband alive again.
Thank you very much for talking to us. It's been almost a year since we last had this conversation. First of all, how are you doing?
Good question. In my worst nightmares, I wouldn't believe that we are meeting in this situation where nothing changed, actually. Tzachi is still in the Hamas.
Tzachi Edan, your husband,
Yeah.
50 years old, he was kidnapped by Hamas. And your daughter, Mayan, 18 years old, she was murdered that day.
Yeah.
And you've been living with that, both of those enormous tragedies all this time.
Yes, it's been 313 days of hell. We are out of breath, just like them, in captivity and being hostage by Hamas, which are terrorists and murderers.
He was kidnapped and taken to Gaza. What's the latest you've heard about his condition?
The latest was at end of November when the release of the hostages, the last release of hostages from Gaza. I had an eyewitness say that she was with him for a day or two, and she talked to him, and he was really emotionally down and thinking about Mayan and what happened, and that he misses all. I don't know if he knows if we're okay. And it was a really long time ago, that day that she told me that she saw him. It's unimaginable that we are sitting right now after this time and nothing changed. He's not back. They are not back. They are not all back. It's unthinkable. It's unthinkable and unbearable, and we live in this audacity every day, every hour, thinking about our loved ones in hostage conditions.
Do you have any hope that these negotiations, which are taking place and are about to resume, will result in a ceasefire and B, the release of the hostages, including your husband?
Most definitely, yes, yes. The only way that Tzachi and 114 other hostages can come back, some alive, some dead, for a proper burial, is the only way is in a deal. The only way is in a deal. You cannot make an army, a mission to save them all. You cannot. And a few days ago, Sean came to my room crying in the middle of the night and said, "I want my daddy. I want dad here. I miss Mayan and I want dad here." And you need to hug her. And just, what can I say to her? What can I say to her? What answer is there? I can't bring her dad. I wish I could. I would have, in any means. I need the government and everybody that are in the doing of this deal to bring Tzachi home alive, like he was taken. He was taken alive. He needs to come back alive.
Good morning, sirens greeting my ears. I have nothing to fear. I'm home. Where are you? Strangers clutching my hands, walking slow through the sand. I choke. Darling, if you hear me resist the screaming, I'm fine. And darling, if you love me, keep speaking softly and hide. No offense, I'm so defenseless. Pretty dress torn on the fences. This is not a pretty way to die. No offense, I'm so relentlessly begging for you to take me out alive. Don't leave me here, don't leave me here. I'm dancing, bombs fly over my head. Music fades till it's dead. I froze. Darling, if you hear me resist the No offense, I'm so defenseless. Pretty dress torn on the fences. This is not a pretty way to die. No offense, I'm so relentlessly begging for you to take me out alive. Don't leave me here, don't leave me here. No offense, I'm so defenseless. Pretty dress torn on the fences. This is not a pretty way to die. No offense, I'm so relentlessly begging for you to take me out alive. Don't leave me here, don't leave me here to die.
Salam, peace. שלום, סלם, פיס. זאת התשובה עכשיו. אנחנו סוכני התקווה והשלום. בהצלחה.
حبيبي حبيبي حبيب قلبي
גדול אתה. גדול.
זהו? When there is a crisis, I know there is an opportunity. Unfortunately, for my parents and for my family and for both people, it's a huge tragedy. It's a huge crisis, but the opportunity is as bigger than ever. This must be the last war in the region. The last war in the region. By meeting with Israelis and Palestinians, including in Cyprus, in Geneva, Palestinians from Gaza that also lost father, brother, entire families, and we came with 5 principles, our common ground for a shared future. Reconciliation, security and safety, acknowledgement and recognition, trust through healing, and dignity and honesty.
ששני העמים שלנו יחיו בשלום, וזה יהיה בזכות כל מי שנמצא פה עכשיו. כל הניצחונות במלחמה עד עכשיו הביאו...
וגם המוזיקה ברקע ככה עושה נעים, אני תוהה אם אתם בסדר עם התפילה
You never know how strong you are until being strong is your only choice. I wish we had another choice, but we don't. And in the midst of our fury and our grief, we are seeing the best of Israeli and Jewish society worldwide. This global outpouring of love, of unity, of resilience, of strength is all the more remarkable considering where we were on October 6th. Let's rewind for a minute. Back before the rocket barrages, the paragliders, the horror we could not have imagined, back to the moment that Israeli society began tearing itself apart. It took 5 elections and 3 years, but Israel finally managed to put together a government in late 2022, a highly controversial government. Almost immediately, the fault lines in Israeli society deepened. They had always been there. After the election, they grew into a seemingly unbridgeable chasm. For months, ordinary citizens protested the government. Israel has been described, somewhat mawkishly, as the world's most chaotic family reunion. It's a sentimental comparison, but there's truth to it. It is the living embodiment of the Jewish prayer for kibbutz galuyot, the ingathering of the exiles. And then came October 7th, when the real enemy showed us what it looked like to try and bring down a country. They bloodied us, it's true. We're bruised and battered and scarred. But they also brought us together. Yes, Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad managed to do what the Israeli cabinet couldn't. Without intending to, they erased months of protests and infighting, bridging divides that had seemed intractable only 24 hours before. Call it trauma bonding. Call it arevut, the concept that all Jews are responsible for one another. Call it a natural response to an existential threat. I am seeing and hearing things that I could not have imagined, displays of solidarity that would have once seemed outlandish, unprecedented and heartwarming outpourings of generosity, the kind of resilience that I'd read about in history books. There's this fact that I absolutely love. For 2 years after the Holocaust, European DP camps had the highest birth rates in the world. an entire generation of refugees, traumatized, orphaned, scarred, choosing life in the face of so much death. We are the descendants of those brave refugees. Their resilience and strength is encoded in our DNA. And whether we live in Israel or the diaspora, we are coming together in choosing life. Before October 7th, liberal Jews around the world were growing increasingly worried about, well, basically everything to do with Israel. Its hardline government, its military policies, its settlement expansions, its proposed judicial reforms. All of that has been set aside. Our home is on fire, and Jews around the world are rushing to help. They've rallied in England and Chile and Canada. They've put up billboards in religious communities, urging commuters stuck in traffic to take the opportunity to pray for their fellow Jews. They've come to college campuses to sing with and comfort Jewish students who have been threatened and assaulted by their peers. They've plastered hostage posters on lampposts and trees and utility poles, reminding everyone of the Israelis who have been unjustly stolen from their homes. They've set up installations across the world, Shabbat tables with 240 empty seats, one for each hostage, empty strollers, teddy bears, eyes and hands bound, spray painted red with blood. A reminder of what the hostages suffered on October 7th, what they might still be suffering now. It's a dare to the rest of the world. Just try to look away. We're not forgetting. Neither will you. So while our news feeds show us the kind of hatred we thought we left behind in the 20th century, they're also trumpeting our love for one another. It's the kind of love that transcends everything, bridging gaps that once seemed insurmountable. The love between family.
17 years in the Army, I never saw a difficult situation like the situation we're in now. But what matters now is that we're together, post Chazak, and we get actions like this.
On October 6th, we were divided, squabbling at each other's throats. By October 8th, we became, once again, the Israelis who built a country, who brought a Jewish commonwealth back to life after 2,000 years of exile, who fended off the enemy time and time again. These are two leaders of Israel's opposing protest movements, who spent months mobilizing thousands of Israelis for two opposing causes. Today, they stand arm in arm, united under the same flag. Categories like religious, secular, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Arab are melting and mingling. In their place is a unified identity and a shared goal, the survival of our homeland. Will this unity last after the war ends? Will we treat each other more kindly, more lovingly, more empathetically, as each of us learns to live under a mantle of grief? Will we remember the beauty of this moment when we banded together and chose life? I hope so. I'd like to believe that we will. This is the secret to our survival through pogroms and expulsions and genocide. And this is why we have been able to say, despite everything, that Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel, live.
Everywhere is violence. Usini ogope. There must be a better way. Nikuambie. Can't just sit in silence and pray. Can't close our eyes and hope for a better day. Yeah. Everybody's biased. Usini ondoke. There must be another way. Nikuambie. Wanna sleep